Guru Sri Juta Padakamalang.
Hare Krishna, welcome back. We have our channel Bhagavad-gita, here it is. And because we have the book Bhagavad-gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Naimla Bangalatika. We are in the 7th chapter and we have come to the text 16, which came after the text 15, of course, that we were reading for three of our videos. And we started off, I want to read text 14 again, because that's why we focus on these persons. We will hear about 4 other groups of people. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So when we speak about liberation or salvation in this world, there are many methods, there are many yoga methods, there are many religions, and there are many, ways to plan how to get out of the difficult problems of this world. But the fact is that this material energy is Krishna's energy. And any other method is, we depend on our own strength, and if we try to get out of the suffering of this world, well, we can't just get out of the world. We want to go somewhere. And that somewhere, the eternal abode, is Krishna's abode in the spiritual world. And by surrendering to Krishna in a loving relationship, then he can take this material energy, he can tell it to leave us alone, if that's what we actually want. And we heard of 4 persons who will not do that, who will simply not surrender to Krishna, because it's not what they want to do. And here we hear of 4 persons, let me just read it. Text 16. Chaturvidha bhajante mang jana sukritin ordjuna artho jigyasur artharthi gyanicha bharatharshabha. O best among the Bharatas, 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. Purport. Unlike the miscreants, these are adherents of the regulative principles of the scriptures, and they are called sukritina, or those who obey the rules and regulations of scriptures, the moral and social laws, and are more or less devoted to the Supreme Lord. Out of these 3 are 4 classes of men. No, out of these there are 4 classes of men: those who are sometimes distressed, those who are in need of money, those who are sometimes inquisitive, and those who are sometimes searching after knowledge of the absolute truth. These persons come to the Supreme Lord for devotional service under different conditions. These are not pure devotees, because they have some aspirations to fulfill in exchange for devotional service. Pure devotional service is without aspiration and without desire for material profit. Yes. We often hear Prabhupada say that Krishna consciousness is not a religion, because religion is still anchored in the culture, in the material world. Religion kind of combines the structured, regulated way of turning to God of a person who still has material desires. And by turning to God, then something starts to develop, something spiritual also starts to develop. But sometimes when we look around at religion, we kind of scratch our heads and wonder, what does that have to do with God? But all of it doesn't have to do with God, but at least such a person has taken that step of turning to God. And that is an important step. But it's not complete in and of itself, because Prabhupada sometimes mentioned this prayer, what you say in English, Our Father who are in heaven. So give me this day my daily bread. Don't lead me into temptation. Forgive me if I do anything bad. It's a little bit a list of demands. And it is one step above a materialist, a complete materialist, to turn to God, to realize that whatever we want, well, God has it. But the next step is to turn to God out of love, out of a desire to serve him and please him. But this is like the step in between. That's the person who turns to God. And then this process can act on such a person. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11 defines pure devotion thus: Anyabhilashita shunyang jnana karamadyanavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanang bhaktiruttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit and gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. So I actually don't think I have seen this distinction anywhere else, because before I came in contact with the Hare Krishna movement, with the philosophy of the Bhagavad-gita, I started my spiritual quest by looking at this world and looking at different activities, people, philosophies, and not finding a deeper meaning in them. Because religions, they turn to God and they tell us to follow God's instruction, and they tell us that the goal is to come to God. But sometimes it's very much mixed up with, cultural demands and a little bit of a short-sightedness. You hear about, I'm from Sweden, and we're not very religious here, but the religion that is closest to us is, of course, most common is Christianity. And you hear about Jesus, and you hear some quite, simple and profound points about God consciousness, but you don't hear very much about God. You're supposed to go there. But who is he? What will we do when we get there? How do we connect to him? What do we do? I mean, of course, we can follow the rules. But that's like a little bit of a negative. It's like in the society, if you want to be a good citizen, you follow the rules and then you don't go to prison. You don't kill anyone and you don't steal. Well, that's all right. I have no aspiration to kill and steal. That's a very low level, very base level. But what's the next step? Who is that God? How do we connect to him? How do we love him? So Bhagavad-gita wants to take us one step further. These are the pious people who turn to God. This is very good. But that is not the perfection. That is not a big cause of pride and self-righteousness. Sometimes we find that with religious people. They're so self-righteous, and they look down at all the sinners because they're good, because they do what God wants. And therefore they get good things. And they're very happy. Some. Not all. Of course not. Because as soon as you connect with God, then that natural love in the heart starts to unfold again. And that is possible within every religion. But Bhagavad-gita makes more of a... a structured description of these different levels. The Bhakti Yoga process doesn't just say be good, be religious and go to heaven. There are different levels. We don't want to be good and go to heaven. That's still within the material world. We want to give up all the illusions, surrender to Krishna in pure love, and have nothing else in our hearts. This also, of course, includes all the living entities because they're part of Krishna. So that love spreads. But we are not satisfied just, to pray to God when we suffer or when we need money or when we're curious or when we want knowledge. We want to take it one step further. And, of course, Prabhupada gives us this information so that we don't kind of mistakenly... I shouldn't be making fun of religions. But I have heard of this one church who have a homepage that says godhatesfags.com. I mean... how is that religion? How does that help us to develop our pure love for Krishna? How does that help us feel compassion? That is not what Krishna is talking about in Bhagavad-gita. So, yes, I will read more. When these four kinds of persons come to the Supreme Lord for devotional service and are completely purified by the association of a pure devotee, they also become pure devotees. As far as the miscreants are concerned, for them devotional service is very difficult because their lives are selfish, irregular, and without spiritual goals. But even some of them by chance, when they come in contact with a pure devotee, also become pure devotees. So that is a more powerful platform than just being regulated and religious. Those who are always busy with fruitive activities come to the Lord in material distress, and at that time associate with pure devotees and become in their distress devotees of the Lord. Those who are simply frustrated also come sometimes to associate with the pure devotees and become inquisitive to know about God. Similarly, when the dry philosophers are frustrated in every field of knowledge, they sometimes want to learn of God, and they come to the Supreme Lord to render devotional service, and thus transcend knowledge of the impersonal Brahman and the localized Paramatma, and come to the personal conception of Godhead by the grace of the Supreme Lord or his pure devotees. On the whole, when the distressed, the inquisitive, the seeker of knowledge, and those who are in need of money are free from all material desires, and when they fully understand that material remuneration has nothing to do with spiritual improvement, they become pure devotees. As long as such a purified stage is not attained, devotees in transcendental service to the Lord are tainted with fruitive activities, the search for mundane knowledge, etc. So one has to transcend all this before one can come to the stage of pure devotional service. Yes, so when we start to practice Bhakti Yoga, then over time we become, a little introspective and a little humble. Because at first it can feel like, I came to this Krishna consciousness, I started to chant Krishna's name, I heard the Bhagavad-gita from the devotees, and it has satisfied a desire in my heart for truth, for spiritual truth. So now everything is done, finished. I'm perfect already. Usually that is not the case. Usually in our heart we carry with us desires from lifetime after lifetime, and they are accumulated there and they pop up when the time is right. So little children, they have very simple desires, and as soon as they become teenagers they become very complicated, and they want to start to go in the direction of their sex desires, which can be very complicated in this world. And then similarly, when we start to take the spiritual life, then we have this process, and one stage is called anartha nivritti. There's a verse somewhere, and it's very instructive. It starts with adhau shraddha, a little bit of faith, not a complete, rock foundation of faith that takes us through anything, just enough faith that we look at this process and we think, that might work. Those people are doing that process. We might want to test it also. So then, sadhu sangha, we start to associate with spiritual people, with the devotees of Krishna. And then, bhajana kriya, we start to perform the process of worship. And then, anartha nivritti, then the purificatory process comes. Anartha, artha means that which is valuable, and anartha means that which has no value. And nivritti means we give it up. We become purified from it. And it is a conscious endeavor. It's not that we just automatically float off in a spiritual bliss, because we came here after a very long time in the material world, and throughout our lives we have been striving for fulfilling our desires. We have been going through difficulties. We have been carrying these pains and sorrows and desires, and they are very ingrained in our heart, and they come up. They don't come up, all of them, and shock us with all the baggage we're carrying. They're coming up here and they're coming up there, and in the beginning we don't even notice them because they may be quite subtle, but that is what is needed, a little bit of honesty. So yes, it is very good to be one of the pious people who turn to God in our need in this world, but in order to be fully realized in our spiritual capacity, we want to move beyond that level of going to God with our needs. We want to go to God with our love and with our service in a very pure sense. But we see Bhagavad-gita is very realistic. It doesn't demand from us to just be perfect or be be perfect or be damned. No. This is a process, and these four pious kind of peoples have the potential to develop this pure devotional service. But as Prabhupada is saying, if one is very pious and very religious and very regulated, we may just be good religious people for many, many lives. And even a person who lacks this kind of culture and these kind of qualities, if that person comes in contact with devotees, because that is actually the most powerful part of it, to come in contact, come in touch with other people who are practicing Krishna consciousness, who are developing Krishna consciousness, who actually have already developed Krishna consciousness, then that becomes contagious. That's very inspirational, and that's a large part of our process. So yes, this is also a very nice verse, and it's also one of the verses, if one likes to learn verses by heart, then both 15 and 16 are often, 14, 15 and 16, all of them are good to practice and know, because they are kind of, how to say, if you go sailing, then most of it is just sea. But therefore, in the middle of this sea, it's important to have some points of reference in our journey, so we understand, am I going, am I veering off the course, this direction or the other direction? So these three verses, they are useful like that. Thank you so much. Yes, I hope you have found the information that I left in the box below useful. There are links for Krishna temples, Bhagavad-gita, purchasing, and also the playlist. I made playlist for all the chapters. Also, lots of room for comments below, comments and questions. I'll be happy to answer. And we put up new videos every Tuesday and Friday. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,